understand id, ego, and superego conflicts and all those things, then we can understand how the nafs affects your qalb portion, or the how the ruh affects that, correct? And when that makes sense, then you understand how self-esteem works over here, correct? So that's why I will try to explain ego conflicts from psychiatry first of all, and then once you understand that concept, we will go into the Islamic concept and make you understand this is what my thought is. Wallahu alam, Allah knows the best, but this is my understanding. So just here, bear with me. Let's go to the next slide. Yes. So when we are doing about ego conflict, we have id, superego, and ego. Correct. So this is where the ego conflict comes. Is that when the id is fighting against superego, and the ego has to resolve the issue, and how it resolved by defense mechanism. Correct. This is from the Freud theory of structural theory. Let's go to the next slide to explain that. So Freud explained this structure theory in 1930s and 40s, and he came up with this that your id develop at the time of infancy when you're born. At the time your id develop, and the ego develop a few months later. So that's where it is, and then super ego develop when you are 6 years or till 12 or 14 when you develop puberty and all those things. So these are the time period when they develop. Correct. So at least you need to know why at what time they are developing from behavior science and psychiatry. This is what it is, correct? So let's go into the detail. What is id, ego, and superego? So let's do the next slide. Again, next slide. Yes. Okay. So, what is, according to psychiatry, what is id, ego, and superego? So, id is a unconscious. We went into detail what is unconscious mind and conscious mind. It is all unconscious. It's a reservoir of libido. What is libido? Is basic energy fueling all human thoughts and behavior. It is non-rational. It needs immediate gratification, pleasure. This is all your id is. Correct? It starts as soon as you're born. You will see a child wants everything for itself. The world belongs to it. That is their nafs. That's the id. Correct? This is all going on. Correct? What is then superego is, and this is mostly unconscious, but can be conscious, but mostly unconscious, is not entirely rational, very rigid to moral ideas, internalize moral standards from parents and society. That's very important to understand. What if a moral standard for parents and society, correct? It has passes its goal as blindly as it is. So it's also instant gratification, but it has a moral standard and moral reality, higher level. So if you understand superego from psychiatry and think about as rule, that will help you understand, because if you have a higher moral standard, you rely on Allah and the highest level, that you can assume that is superego. So in you, everybody has id, ego, and superego. So the issue comes is your id and superego is always in a fight going on, and the ego has to resolve the issue, correct? And how it does is a rational, is a conscious as well as unconscious. So it works on both conscious and unconscious mind, correct? We went into the detail what is conscious and unconscious mind is, correct? And it's not always what they want. It wants delayed gratification. It's not immediate gratification. So there's a huge fight going on every time between id and superego, and the ego has to resolve it. The way it resolves is by defense mechanism, what we call it. Sigmund Freud gave a couple of defense mechanisms, and then her daughter gave more defense mechanism to explain that. So we need to understand what are the defense mechanisms, how your body has defense mechanism to deal with the issues. This is how your body deals with it when you see the problem, right? It's coming from the ego portion, right? So let's go to the next slide. These are all information. Bear with me. Once you understand this, you understand behavior science psychiatry, and then I will add up into the concept from Islamic concept. So it will help you. So you have when the ego has to resolve the issue, it has a mature defense mechanism. It has a narcissistic defense mechanism. It's an immature and neurotic. There are a lot of defense mechanisms. These are the few examples I have put in over there. Mature is the one which is really strong ego. That is ideal healthy mechanism, correct? So it's like humor, sublimation, suppression, anticipation. These are called mature defense mechanism. When your super ego controls strongly your ego and it does not have much saying, it has some saying, but it's not out of control, correct? These are mature defense mechanism, and this is the good level of mechanism. Keep in mind these defense mechanisms are associated with your feeling, and they can switch over from one to another at any time. So this is how your human body thinks in the brain when they do it. So let me go into different example. Like for instance, narcissistic defense mechanism is usually seen at the child when he's growing up or she's growing up, because the child needs what they want. So they use the denial. They deny all the issues and they say, I'm right, and deny all those things, or distort, or they project things, correct? So this is a child mechanism of how they deal it. But in an adult, if you have narcissistic defense mechanism, that's not considered normal defense mechanism. That's mean your id is controlling you. The super ego has lost its control, correct? So this is not good for you. The people with narcissism have narcissistic defense mechanisms. That's very common, correct? And you need to worry about it, because one thing which you need to worry is because of empathy portion. You start to have developed empathy after the age of 6 and onwards. By the age of 9 and 10, if you have not developed empathy, that's a problem, because because your narcissism is sitting there and it stayed there. So by the age of 6, there is a change of thinking in a child, correct? And then empathy should kick in by that time. So they understand not only their needs, but their family needs, their parent needs, their brother and sister need, and they empathize and all. Why empathy is so important? Empathy is so important because the whole concept of Islam is based on empathy. If you have narcissism, how can you follow Islam? That is Abu Jahl comes in. He has narcissism sitting over there. Why are you going to give zakat to anybody if you have narcissism? If you have empathy, you will do everything. Look at the moments, look at the Sahabas, look at everything. They have full of empathy and compassion. Islam is all about empathy and compassion, right? So these concept has to be developed in a kid after the age of 6 onwards. By 9 or 10, if they have not developed, you should be looking forward that they should start developing it. So this is very important to understand from the from defense mechanism. If they have those things, we need to work on it. So then we have immature defense mechanism and neurotic defense. Neurotic is when under stress, under anxiety, you have those developed. Let me go to the next slide explaining these defense mechanism. We can go to the next slide. Perfect. Okay, so we have altruism. This is the best defense mechanism you have. Means gratification without return from other. The prophets, the moments, and the pious person have altruism. It is exactly the opposite of narcissism, correct? They will give everything without any return from anybody. So only return is from Allah, right? So this is, if you have an ego which has altruism, you are on the right pathway. You have empathy and compassion, correct? Humor, that's another defense mechanism human body use, is like use a humor to change the viewpoint, to decrease overstimulation. Like I gave you example, if person use a smile to overcome shortcoming in actions to continue with the work. So you because your ego is so strong, you can take, if something goes wrong, means minor thing goes wrong, with a humor rather than act out and be angry, aggressive. So that tells you your ego is strong enough. And when I'm telling you ego, think about your cult. This is where the concept of cult comes in, correct? Sublimation is another thing which you should understand is conversion or urges from socially acceptable ones, correct? So, if, for instance, a person with frequent anger outbursts will start painting for emotional expression. So, the person knows that he get angry, but he change his thought towards something useful, correct? That's a good defense, healthy defense mechanism, correct? So that's what we call sublimation. We can go to the next slide. Good. So suppression is internal exclusion of material from awareness. This is one of the defense mechanisms which is used from the conscious mind, correct? Like the doctor treating a patient in emergency room, suppress the emotional and continue professional duty. That is seen in the physician and other people. So this is your ego. You see people dying, but you keep your professionalism there, correct? Or you're keeping your emotion intact and do it professionally without getting affected. That tells your ego is strong and able to handle things, correct? Repression is the involuntary forgetting the thought associated with biological needs. So this is abnormal because your child abuse repress the memories but difficulty with trusting the adults. So when a child is abused when they are growing up, they won't trust the adults, so this is abnormal defense mechanism, correct? So your ego goes into abnormal form to handle the situation, to avoid anxiety, correct? So these are the then we have displacement one emotion to another. So you get, a person is angry with the boss and then he takes the anger out on the kids. That's abnormal. That's not considered enough. So now you're telling that your ego is not able to handle it and the id has to do it and it is controlling you, correct? So these are the some of the examples. Let's go to the next slide. The other is projection. So your own shortcoming, but blame other for the our shortcoming. That's a very common projection we see in our life, that we blame other for our shortcoming. That tells your ego is not strong or healthy. It's using the id phenomena, and how superego is very much suppressed, correct? Reaction formation, denial is very common. Deny the facts. You lie to the world, correct? If you have done something and you say I didn't do it, that's denial. That's mean your id wants to control you, control the ego, and the superego is not taking care of it because the superego is very weak to control it. So there's a fight going on between it and superego, correct? And the ego has to resolve it. Isolation is also the same thing, correct? So these are a few defense mechanisms. Defense mechanisms, a lot of things. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So the meat of the bulk where I'm coming is, so we have id, ego, and superego from psychiatry, correct? But if you read the Quran, and I will go into different translation of the Quran, and we'll go from there. If you understand the nafs, it meets similar criteria of the id, correct? And then the question is, what about superego? If the superego is the highest level of similar to what Allah has given or the best morals, then it could be similar to superego is that. So the id and superego always conflict, and the ego has to resolve. In my understanding, ego is your qalb, which has to, or your mind where the ego lies, correct? This is where you make a lot of decision making, correct? So let's go to the next slide and then I will go into that. In fact, we went into that. So let's go to the next one. So what is calm? This is a means everybody come up with a different definition or different understanding, but you need to understand what Allah wants to tell you, because the Quran came in a classical Arabic, correct? Or so we need to understand, and people understood very well. So in the Surah number 22, verses 46, it says the qalb which qalb with which we can understand. So if you look at the context of the qalb, from context and the meaning, from the classical Arabic is something which is in the center, who understand, and something that moves, correct? This is exactly what the qalb means, correct? And a lot of people have interpreted qalb as heart. The problem comes that if you say heart, then a lot of people think it's a structural heart. And then your thought process goes through the structure. And then when you think about it, if you put heart as a structural heart as your qalb, then there will be a lot of other issue comes in, because how do you understand things from your heart, right? If you want to understand things, you need to have memory system, right? You have to have all the impulses going into it, analyzing it, and deciding it. We means we have tons of cardiologists and all those neurologists, and everybody has gone and look up on that. The memory system is in the brain. It's not in your heart, correct? We have a neurotransmitters, but majority of the neurotransmitters in the brain. Heart also have few neurotransmitter. You have a neural circuit, which is sympathetic autonomic nervous system there in the heart, which is governs by the brain. So if you look at it, which is most important? Is it heart important in your human body or the brain? It's you can literally find what is the center. If Allah is saying center, it is the brain, not the heart, or it could be your mind, correct? So that is where you need to understand. And my point of view is when somebody say Allah says qalb, keep it as the qalb, not make up your thinking, because it will be your interpretation when you're taking as a qalb as structural heart. Even Imam Ghazali talk about spiritual heart. He does not say it's about structural heart, correct? So this is just one example here, which is the translation: "Have you have not traveled through the land? They have no cup to learn the wisdom, or ear to hear the truth." Correct. So if you're thinking about wisdom from the heart, structure heart, it does not make higher sense, because you don't learn with the memory system from the heart. We already know the memory system is in the mind, in your brain, correct? Let's go to the next slide with different other ayats are there. So this is from the Quran, chapter 32, Al-Sijda, verses 9. And if you have the female Quran by Maulana Maududi, he explained in much detail that when we are talking about qalb, you're talking about the mind or the ego and all those things, correct? And so I just use that reference where he explained about qalb, nafs, and ruh in Tafhimul Quran, correct? Um, the translation for this verses is, "Then he fashioned him in due proportion and breathed him into him. His spirits, he gave you ears, eyes, and heart, yet you are seldom thankful," correct? So if you understand Quran use a lot of metaphors, and we need to understand what Allah wants to say to you, correct? If you take a literal meaning, then we can get deceived. So we need to understand what is the context and what is the semantic behind that. So it's very important to understand. I think so. Maulana Maududi did a great job. So as Dr. Israr Ahmed, in a lot of time he explained the concept of it. So I have given other example like chapter 3, Al Imran, verses 122, 126, and 139. And if you read those translation, these are translation I wrote down, that remember when two parties from among you become faint-hearted, and Allah protected them through the strengthening of their heart, correct? So how can you strengthen your heart, your heart, structural heart, so it's a metaphor used, correct, here. And we need to understand what Allah wants from the metaphor of heart is. And this is where all the word qalb is used, correct? This translation, which is 126, is, "Allah has told you this is a good news, and then your heart may be easy. Therefore, Thereby, victory comes only from Allah and Mighty, the Wise, correct? The next is 139, which is do not grieve and get disheartened for you and have the upper hand if you are a believer, correct? Same thing in Surah Baqarah, verses 74. But even though they see that your heart become hard like a rock, or even harder from, there are some rock from which river gush out, and there are some which breaks ashore and water comes out of them. So Allah used metaphors here, and we need to understand what metaphor is used and what the meaning behind that to understand that. And if you use as a metaphor as a structure heart, you will go into a different direction than you if you use understand the cult concept as a mind and the ego concept. It makes a lot of sense, correct? So it's very important to understand the concept of Qalb. I believe from Maulana Maududi and Dr. Israr Ahmed said the same thing, that is Qalb is your mind, not the heart. And the other concept I will say that usually I can tell you that, if it is a structural heart, if you say, then we have pacemakers, correct? So we can put a pacemaker on a person and the pacemaker lasts for 10 years. So the person will never die for 10 years because the pacemaker is working. We know that it does not happen that way. So uh, just give me 1 minute, okay? Sorry about that. So if you look into the means from medical standpoint of view, um, it's what we call brain death. When a person dies, we through the brain death we say it's not the heart that dies. So if you understand this concept, which we all know about it, it's the what is the center of your body is your brain or your mind, not your heart. And that we take as a structural heart, and then we have difficult thinking in that way because we assume everything is coming from your structural heart. So that is what I want you to understand, that if your qalb or your qalb or your ego is strong, then you can handle a lot of things. And it's very important to make your curb strong or your ego conflict, resolve ego conflict. If you resolve ego conflict with a healthy defense mechanism, your self-esteem will go up because your id or the nafs will keep on asking you to do things which you don't want to do or which is not allowed. You're allowed to do certain things in Islam and follow that nafs, correct? But to not to a higher level where it says everything what it wants, correct? So this is very important concept to understand, that your nafs controls your qalb, and we need to understand what is the qalb, concept of the qalb is, and then we go from there. And the superego or the root does affects you, but you have to make your qalb or your ego or your mind strong enough to handle that thing. And that is very important to understand self-esteem, because if your mind is strong, you can handle all the desires and control it. And there where the self-esteem becomes very strong. In Muslims and especially in moments, they have ability to control that. Why? Because their qalb or their mind is so strong that even if you provide them any luxury, it's mean nothing to them because their self-esteem is high. Means they don't need it. They know where they have to go, correct? So you need to develop self-esteem that it does not bothers you. If you look at the Quran, Hazrat Musa alayhi salam, he went to see the Pharaoh. Was he impressed by Pharaoh? No, of course not. Huzur Was he impressed by the Roman Empire? Not at all. This is what the self-esteem did. The Sahabas, they live ordinary life. They didn't had any money or anything. They used to live means Huzusam used to eat after 3 days, but they didn't care about it because their ego, their self-esteem is really strong. And if you have a strong self-esteem and you control your conflict, ego conflict, you have one way to go. Your frontal lobe or executive decision making knows what you can do. So that will be very important to resolve your ego conflict. When you resolve your ego conflict, you will be stronger in your self-esteem. Hopefully, I make everybody understand. You may have a lot of questions, and we'll go from there.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. Dr. Najeeb, do you want to start taking questions now?
Sure.
I'll go first. My first question is how to make it in harmony with superego, and what are the tools that can make ego go become more oriented toward the superego?
Repeat
In
the
other
question.
ways, how to control how to control your nafs in a more concise way.
Okay, that's really good question. So first of all, you have to understand you have a nafs or it, correct? And that is there, is given by Allah, correct? Allah has given you nafs, correct? And the nafs has no limitation, correct? So it has no limitation. He wants instant gratification and enjoying that, correct? When you have education and the Quran and the Sirah, you understand that nafs needs to be controlled, correct? Like, give you example. You can drink water, but during fasting, you control your nafs. That water is forbidden during the fasting. The nafs is fighting with you at that time. The nafs wants that you should drink water. You find excuses to drink water, or you are thirsty, or whatever. But you make your ego so strong in your mind that the nafs will control itself, correct? So you have to work on your mind, or especially your ego, with the help of your superego. Superego is what you get from the Ruh concept, from reading the Quran and the Sirah and understanding how much you can learn from it, how much we can learn from it, why Sahabas were so ahead of us, correct? Because they are so much connected to Allah's and Sirat of Huzur Sallallahu that they were able to control their nafs. The goal, and Quran says that, don't make your nafs your God, because you will go to Jahannam or the hellfire. Says that openly. Don't make your nafs your guiding line, correct? So how do you control is you make your ego or your mind stronger through your superego or, the root concept, right? And only way you can do is learn about it, have
Mm.
education and all those learning, have the importance of Sirah and reading Quran, that why Allah says that, you know so then it will make your ego, you can control your id, correct? And that is very important. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did, and you have answered that. How can I make my ego strong enough? It's by inputting more and more data which is coming to us from divine sources.
And also avoid all the biases and fallacies too, correct?
Yeah.
Because
Mm.
right now when you're reading Quran and you say that, or you read that it's the structural heart, then you will start thinking, is my heart is the one controlling everything, but it's your mind that's control you. Mind is the
Yep.
thing that controls you, not your structural heart. So when a Qalb is used, it's talking about the mind, not the structural heart. So a lot of people have this concept that it's a structural heart does it. Psychiatry helps you in that way, that it's not the structural heart. And when you're talking about id, ego, and superego, they lies in your brain.
Okay. Yes, I have got my answer. Thank you so much. Sayyid Hassan?
Yes. Assalamu alaikum, Dr.
Walaikum salam.
Najeeb. It was beautifully explained. You explained about the nerves and mind and different sectors of our body. Uh, my main concern is, and the question is, like, how do you train these sectors? I know you just gave an answer that how you train it, but actually, I just want to go more deeper in this situation. Like, what happens is our nerves and our mind gets manipulated unconsciously because of the ambient that we have, because of the people that we relate, because of the activities that we do. Now, the thing is, these all everything happens unconsciously, okay? It to the mind. And most of the people even do not even realize that their ego has affected, their nerves have affected. So, how do you first realize it? Like your nerves is manipulated, your nerves has gone wrong. Now you have to correct it. Okay, that's my first question. And then how do you fix that center of that sector of our body, that which is nerves and the qalb? Because the same whatever you just explained, it was beautifully presented. And I was having a discussion with my Arabic friend. He's from Syria, and we were literally fighting on it, that in Pakistan, uh, we have thought from different people, we have spoken from other, we have, sorry, heard from different scholars that the qalb is this qalb, the physical qalb, that you have to. So, but he was telling me exactly the same what you just explained. It was really, really beautiful. So I hope you got my two questions right.
Yes, I did. And it's a good question. And I will go into detail about that too.
Thank you
So
so much.
the goal of you is Quran talks a lot about qalb. More than 100 times. I think it's 132 times. I'm not sure how exact number, 120. It's more than 100 times. Allah talk about qalb all the time. So we need to understand, and Allah talks about it, that when you do bad thing, qalb become blacker and blacker, correct? It's become not, qalb is basically working, but if your nafs is controlling so much that the qalb cannot take from the superego or the ruh concept, then it became the slave of your nafs. And Allah talks about it. Don't become the slave of your nafs. Means Allah talks to you that you can enjoy life, correct? Because we have three different type of nafs in the Quran, correct? Nafs amara, nafs lawama, and mutmaina, correct? There are three types of nafs, correct? These are the different types of nafs where it tells you the stages that this is a good one, this is one that fears, and that is the bad one, correct? So you need to work on your calb, and the best way to work on your calb, first of all, you have to have a good intention. Innamal a'malu binniyat. Intention starts from there, correct? So you have to have a good intention to start with. Allah talks about in the Quran, it's a book of wisdom. It's a book of wisdom. So it all depends on you. If you have the iman and you want to learn about it, Allah will help you. Correct? Allah will help you. You have to go and read the Quran and the Sirah and see how they did. Means Sahaba Ikram, nothing means they literally, if they miss one salat, they feel the doomsday is coming to them because they have so much strong their qalb, and the ruh concept is so much entrenched in them, the nafs is totally controlled, right? We like, look at the moments over here, the people who are moments, they are like that, they have controlled the nafs. And your goal is, the more you understand the Quran in the context of it, and the Sirah of Huzur Sallallahu, and look at yourself where you are. What are your shortcomings as far as your biases, fallacies, cognitive dissonance, and ego conflict? You will correct a lot of things from your unconscious mind. In the last presentation, I mentioned to you 60 to 80% of the information is coming from your unconscious mind. We don't take care of that. We only take care of your conscious mind. We don't spend time on your unconscious mind. You have to sit down, think about it. What are the evolving questions that bothers you? It only comes when you spend time with your unconscious mind, correct?
Yeah.
Then it will come all those then you question yourself why I'm having this thought process. It's coming. If your conscious mind, you block it and you say, hey, this is a peaceful time, let me think about it, well, your unconscious mind will start provoking things. The thought process comes. When a thought process comes, you assess the thought process. Why I'm having this thought process? The Quran says this, Sirah says it, why I want to do this, correct? Now you're capturing it. The easiest way to capture your iman is before the namaz. Were you excited to go for the namaz? If your faith is strong, you will, you after the end of the namaz, you will wait for the next namaz. And you're waiting, can Allah give me the opportunity for the next namaz? Because I don't know, every namaz is your last namaz. Tell me when is your last namaz? Because the day that passed by yesterday, you're not going to get ever. You know that. Same thing happened with me. Every namaz of mine is the last namaz of that day for me. You understand this concept? You will start thinking what I'm doing for these namaz for so many years. I'm throwing away the namaz. Allah give you 5 time opportunity. Come close to me. I'm listening to you. And we throw away as if does not exist. We reach the age of 50, 60. Some people die at the age of 20s and 30s. Nowadays, everybody means it's not a surprise when people die suddenly. So I
Yeah.
cannot guarantee myself how long I will live. When
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
get that thought feeling and Iman give you that thought feeling, you're on the right track. Now you're going to scratch out all the, um, you know, all the shortcomings and all the nafs that pushing you to go away from the right pathway. It will come back and it keeps on coming. It will push you. So there's a conflict between it and the superego. When you spend time on your unconscious mind, it will evolve because it's not sitting quietly. By the way, your brain is active when you're sleeping. In fact, highly active. A lot of people don't understand that in sleep is very active brain is, yes, your frontal lobe is not working because you're asleep. Rest of the brain is active. Means if it's not active, you will die. Means your breathing, your respiration, everything is brain is controlling. So this is a wrong concept to understand that, well, brain is sleeping. No, brain is very active.
Jazakallah
Have I
khair.
answered your question?
Actually, two questions. The first part,
Your voice is muffling.
hello? No, it's not me. Someone else is speaking.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, it's Farhana here.
Assalamu
A very
alaikum.
good. Assalamu alaikum. Good to hear from you, Dr. Najeeb. I think a very good, excellent job, I'd say, doing like kind of making that correlation between the Islamic concepts and the Freudian concept of id, ego, superego versus nafs, qalb, and ruh. I think we can definitely draw parallels between the two like concepts. The only thing which I'd say, and obviously we can make it like simplistic for people to understand, but also at the same time, there are a few things that I mean, we really need to have a look at whether they kind of correlate between the two of them. And I really wanted to ask you about that. So, one of the things which I was thinking about is we know for a fact that Freud said that the superego is mostly shaped by the parental and the societal influences, whereas in Islam, the ruh is divinely given and obviously it's from Allah Ta'ala and it's an entity. So, does that mean that in Islamic psychology, morality is more externally revealed and Freud is seeing more as culturally developed? Because obviously we know that Ruh is an entity and superego has external influences. How do you draw like parallels between the two of them?
Excellent question. I'm glad you asked this question. Okay. So, first thing is Freud or psychiatry does not follow any religion, correct? Means psychiatry does not follow. So this is the ending. Your psychiatry starts when you're born, and psychiatry stops when you die, correct? Only Carl Jung was able to connect the conscious mind from the pre and pros, correct? He was trying to match Eastern psychiatry with Western psychiatry, and he was trying to do that, correct? So the question comes, and this is a good question. So Freud is not 100% correct because his way of thinking is in this world. What Quran says is 100% correct? Because the Ruh comes and has a blueprint from Allah, correct? We have to try to understand what Freud was trying to say, and we have to autocorrect from the Freud concept. It's not ideal concept, but it gives you idea what's going in your brain. If you didn't understand it in superego conflict, then you won't understand. You will stuck, well, I did it, but I don't know why I did that, correct? So with that concept, you learn that there is a conflict in your mind. Freud is not correct completely, but at least he gave you the idea to make you understand. So the Quran is the perfect answer. Your ruh comes before you're born, correct? And it has the blueprint Allah has given in your fitrat, in your nature, correct? When you do right thing, Allah will guide you because you have a blueprint of doing it. Because you cannot say that I did bad thing because Allah didn't tell me. No, Allah, your ruh has all the right things sitting there. Correct? So this is the concept of Islamic is, and I think so that's the right concept. Of course, Freud is not he
100%
is
right.
not
Yeah.
religious. So of course
Yeah.
he has a
Yeah.
shortcoming.
Yeah, and so that's I think where I kind of wanted to make like that very clear, and I was wanted to ask you as well that we can say broadly speaking it can be id, ego, and super ego, but at the same time we need to be very mindful that it's not as simple as that, and Islamic concept is more holistic, and then because you mentioned thankfully about Carl Jung as well, so I just wanted to correlate that with the concept of nafs and like in terms of Jungian work, we know there's a lot of shadow work that he has done. So, do you think that the Islamic concept of the nafs that can be related to shadow work in psychology? Because, like, are we supposed to say that the desires are just a Freudian kind of repression defense mechanism, or do they have a spiritual dimension as well? What do you think?
This is my concept. I could be wrong. Wallahu alam, correct? So
Okay.
don't put me on the spot. I'm just very open. Psychiatry has its own shortcoming, correct? So every
Yeah.
Carl Jung comes in, he gave his own idea. Freud came, Anna Freud came, and all those things came, and they gave their own idea. They're trying to understand human nature, correct? Human
Mm-hmm.
understanding. But they are limited because their thought process is when the person is born and a person dies. Islamic concept is far before that. Your
Yeah.
ruh was created a long time ago. Correct. You have a oath with Allah before you were
Yeah.
put to sleep. Correct. The ruh was there. Then your ruh was put back into your body, and there's a test coming on the earth. Correct. These concepts are in Islam. This is the perfect concept. We need to understand this concept that where you came from. There's a reason Allah created me. There's a reason I'm talking to you right now. All right? Allah could have taken me. Allah has given me opportunity and you given opportunity to talk so that other people can understand. So there's a reason behind we are born and we are talking, correct? And
Yeah.
this Freud cannot explain. Right? He's stuck with because he has no religion. Means his religion is not there in psychiatry. So we have to understand that. Some
Sure.
people have tried to put Eastern Western psychology. Carl Jung is the one who did that, and he was amazed to find. In fact, Carl Jung says that there's existence of God.
Yeah.
In his books, he openly talk about it. I have interview. If you want, I can send you the interview. He said God exists, and that was amazing. 1950, he's talking about existence of God from a psychiatry, from an American point of view. So there are psychiatrists who understand that concept because they have gone and listened, and they have are very curious about it that Eastern psychology was very strong before, and the West took over and then override it. But then they realized that Eastern psychology has a lot to offer. So he tried to connect Eastern and with Western psychology to understand better. And there he came up with the concept of God. He talked about it. These Muslims don't get upset when they die because they have the concept. So he has his conscious mind. He says exists before you're born in the Ru process. So he's thinking in that direction, but he does not have the religious concept, correct? So he's short term. So it's a
Yeah.
long discussion. I don't want to go
So
there.
no, no, I understand, and I think you're right in terms of that, because even with Carl Jung and the shadow work and everything, if it's if we think about that, the id or nafs is full of suppressed or hidden impulses, can we fully integrate, or the goal is to discipline it, or rather to embrace it as they do in shadow work. So we cannot correlate the two of them. So we have to pick pieces among them. Lastly, I just quickly want to ask. I'm sure all of the other people are waiting for their questions to be answered as well. So there's a concept of very categorically said about nafse amara lawama and mutmainna in Quran as well.
Correct.
Do you have some idea about how you look at it from a Freudian or a psychological or psychiatric perspective as well, or is it just the nafs in itself that you would say that we can explain through psychology?
No, so this is the Quranic concept. So it has given the quality of the nafs, correct? The Islamic concept. Psychology does not tells you, correct? Psychology says it's a nafs, correct? It's your id. It drives it, correct? It does not goes into detail which is good or bad it, but it is a driving force, correct? But it's good to know from the Islamic concept that you have nafs with this quality. So if it's under control, we call this. When it's not out of, when it's completely out of control, we have a this name, correct? So it's good to know that we have from the Quranic concept, and I agree, believe in Quranic concept, but psychiatry is far behind, but at least we can get some help to get the connection going, correct?
So,
So that is my
so
answer.
yeah, no, I'm just asking because, like, technically speaking, if we look at it, we can also, one can argue that, like, nafse amara is it, and nafse lawama is, the ego, and the mutmainna is the super ego. I mean, you can explain it like that as well if you feel like, but it's just like, the way you look at it, and your interpretation of it really, that kind of shows you that whether it's kalbru or nafs, or whether it's nafs amara lawama or mutmainna. I mean, that's just my opinion, but yeah, people can
Yeah, so
argue
Okay.
with that.
people, but it is in your brain, not in your heart, correct?
Yeah.
But majority of people think it's a structure heart when you're talking about cult.
No, it's
So
a
there
functional
is a
heart.
exactly functional heart, and we know that it does not work out. You have a memory system, you have an understanding which Quran says about the cult, that you do you understand it. The understanding comes with a memory system, and the structure heart does not have the memory, it's in your brain, correct? So we
So,
have to think it's the mind concept, it's not the structural heart concept. Now where it is exactly located, that is debatable. You can say these three nafs are that, or is the nafs, qalb, and ruh is by id, ego, and superego. Either way, uh, wallahu alam, correct? But
sure,
it's in your
sure.
brain.
No, 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 absolutely makes sense. Jazakallah for that, and I'll leave it be for the rest of the people to ask their
Yeah,
Sure,
questions.
yeah.
go
Jazakallah.
ahead.
It's
Brother
Faisal.
Anas,
Can
if
you
you
hear
can
me?
take the point. Faisal, we'll take your question next. Let's take Brother Anas' question first, please. Brother Anas,
Okay.
please take the
Assalamu
mic.
alaikum. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
So, whether I will not be able to express my question as supposed to be, but I will try my hard best to. So, my question basically is that it might be the case with most of the audience who are listening. It is relating to the basic practices of Islam. Like I can say that theoretically, I will claim that I'm a good Muslim, but coming to the practices and
Brother Anas,
practical
sorry to
Islam.
disturb you, but it's very hard to listen to you. Your voice is not very clear. If you can type
Uh,
your question, then it will be easier for Dr. Najib to take
let,
it.
let me just switch off my AirPods with Bluetooth.
Yeah, we fix it.
Is it
Brother
audible
Faisal?
now?
Oh, yeah, it is.
So I was saying that I got some problem with the practical practices of Islam, which are basics, and they might be the problem with the most of the audience here. So they are kind of disturbing for me, and they are like I would say that theoretically I'm a good Muslim and I am just jumping in the Islam, but sometimes I miss prayer, which is very basic. Sometimes I miss very basic concept of Islam. Sometimes I listen to the music, which is a very basic destruction for the teachings of Islam. So this is the problem with me. So if you can help me through this, what steps can a person take to just follow the basics of Islam, and what are the breakdowns through this whole process? So if you can guide me through this, it would be helpful. Thank you.
Sure. So you have to understand why you were created. Allah loves you, that's why He sent it to you. There is a purpose in your life, correct? Do you agree or disagree on that? So there is a purpose, that's why Allah created you. There is a mission given to you, correct? You took the oath. Allah has given you wisdom and Allah has given you a book. Now you have to understand Allah loves you. You have to go and learn about it by reading the Quran and Sunnah and see where you are missing this link, because Allah loves you. It's you going back to Allah and learn about it. Once you learn through the knowledge, Rabbi Zidni Ilma, then you will find what is missing in you. And when you find that, you correct that, because Allah loves you all the time. Correct? Did I answer your question? It's a huge question you're asking me.
Yes, it is. It is. It is a huge question. I understand, and I have searched it in many ways, and I have read most about it. But it might be the discipline problem with me myself, and I don't know. I'm not finding any any proper solution, or that might be the problem within myself, that I can't find the solution for it. But just trying to find out some formula for it to just go and solve this problem.
So,
So
for instance, why you pray namaz? Is Allah looking for the namaz, or you're praying namaz for your purpose, or Allah is looking? Namaz has lot of significance for you. Allah does not need your namaz. Namaz will help you. You need to go in that concept, correct? There is a reason why Allah has given you namaz to read. So after a while, you may sidetrack. So you go back to Allah and ask for forgiveness, think about Allah, so you recalibrate your mind back to the concept of Allah, correct? That's why you pray namaz again and again, correct? Why we are
yes,
called for 5 time prayer? Because the human mind divert as the time passes away, correct? To other things.
yes,
Then you come back, think about. So when you pray namaz, how you're praying namaz? Are you praying close to just like Momin is praying, or you're just praying just like a Muslim is praying? Just read
yes,
the ayat without understanding the meaning, correct? So we need to understand this concept. Namaz is a savior for us. So we need to get that importance of it. Once you understand that, it will help your thinking, the process. You become a better Muslim, and it's a process. Am I making sense to you?
yes, yes, that is making sense, and I would be more thankful if you have made some steps in your presentation. I have joined late, so if you have made some steps in your presentation and you can share, so it will be helpful.
Okay. I have a lot of videos. You can go and watch my videos. It's on YouTube. You can listen to it, and especially the IMS does a great job also on that. So please review those one. That will help you too.
Yeah, Brother Faisal, please take the
Yeah.
mic.
Okay. So my question is regarding intellect and morality. As you told us about the difference between qalb, brain, and heart, I want to know what's the source of intellect, where it's coming from, heart, qalb, brain, and after understanding the concept of heart, qalb, and brain, how can we find the neurological explanation of morality and how to relate it with the proofs of divinity?
That's a big, that's a huge discussion topic.
Yeah,
So, okay, first of
yeah,
all, let's keep it straight and forward. The concept of Ru is limited. Do you agree on that? Because Allah says right up, right?
true, yeah.
You can learn a little bit, but the whole detail about the Ru is not available to you, correct? So we are here. We have very limited information about the Ru concept, but we are told Ru is the purest form. It's put in your nature, correct? Allah has given you the blueprint of everything right to be done in your Ru, correct? It's there. Now you have to
Yeah.
just look into the concept of Ru controlling your Qalb or your Nafs, correct? So if it does, it will help you. Now you also have a memory system, you have a intellectual system, and all those things is your brain, correct? When you question it, you have to understand where it's coming from. Luqman Hakim, give an example of Luqman Hakim. He was in the forest, but he got hikmat because he used his mind to think about it. When you think in a good intention and really work hard, Allah will help you, right? So you are given intelligence altogether. Did you look for it? Means anybody can become a moment. Nobody's stopping you to become a moment. Is any written in Quran that I will stop you to become a moment? No. Who is stopping? We ourselves are stopping. Correct? Agree?
So you
So
are
that
referring Ru as the intellect or just a different concept?
So first of all, Ru, we don't know much about it. So let's not go on something which we don't know about it, right?
Yeah, but
We just
we
know
I am
Allah has
asking
given.
about the intellect, the source of intellect, the reasoning, the faculty of reasoning, where it's coming from.
It's coming from your frontal lobe where you reason, the prefrontal cortex, the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, where the executive decision making is taking place, correct?
So
This is where your
intellect is related to brain, not qalb.
it's Qalb, Qalb is the mind, correct? Now there is a debate going on where the Qalb is located, correct? We do exactly varies from people have different concept. Dr. Israr Ahmed and Maulana Maududi said about the ego concept. Others people have said somewhere else, but all in the brain, correct? It's in your mind, correct? The intellect or the critical taking place in your frontal lobe, correct? That is the executive decision making taking place, correct? So that is what it is. That's my understanding.
So, Dr. Najib,
Okay.
what's the difference between qalb and akal?
Okay, Kalb and Akal. So one is psychiatry, correct?
Mhm.
It's like from the ego, it's a functional concept, correct? Which I understand. This is my understanding, correct? So your Kalb is your, it could be actually the ego or wherever in the mind. Other people have said some other areas of the brain. It varies from. And what's the second one you were asking? Kalb
Akal.
versus
Akal.
Akal is just the knowledge or the wisdom, correct?
Hmm.
Akal in the Quranic concept is, uh, it's basically when you are in line. So there's a difference. The Quranic concept is slightly different than what the other concept is. So akal is when you are in line with Allah and try to go higher. Correct? It's coming from the root, but I'm just forgetting about it. But it's where there it is that you have to align with that and gives that. Then Allah give you more wisdom to you. Correct? And that where it is. So your knowledge, everybody has it. Correct? Means so many non-Muslim have knowledge. Correct? But they don't get the Islamic concept. because they don't have the intention and they don't work on it. They have no niyat and they are not working on it. So Allah give them knowledge, you know, but does not give you them that much wisdom, you know.
I
The
think these
more
are overlapping because in the ayah that you shared, the part of the ayah, it says قُلُوبٌ يَعْقِلُونَ بِهَا. So qalb and aql, they have some overlapping concepts. That's what
yes,
I, yeah.
because it needs the wisdom, correct? It needs the memory, the thought process, and all those things. So they are all connected. The whole brain is connected to each other. It's not separate entity, correct? So the whole mind is connected to each other. It needs the wisdom, you know. So if you don't take away the memory system, then you're not going to think properly, correct? If you
Hmm.
disconnected your frontal lobe, you're not going to think properly.
Yep, that's fine. That's right. Very right. So, like, it was a very good uh, attempt to draw parallels. And even if we do not know the specifics, just drawing these parallels make things very clear. Um, so yeah, Jazakallah khairan kaseera. Sister Nosheen, can we take your question, please?
So my question is like where you put like then one thing that I have heard that the structural heart also have some receptors which have been now with the new research have found that some receptors which are like they that's what that's Quran is referring to that qalb that we think with that qalb is the make decision maker that it has some receptors and that's what you said that we are not sure which is it's located in structural heart or where in the brain or whatever, but that heart has some like that qalb has the Quran implemented that we have that we think with the qalb they do not have qalb or those so we make all decision with our qalb actually the not the our frontal lobe not with our that conscious that mind that what you were saying our frontal lobe but we make decision with our rational brain but we actually the qalb we make the or at the end of the day whatever we make decision that is from our qalb. So if your qalb is not making the right decision we're going to be deviated. And the other where you put in your the classification of id and ego and super ego the fitra, what is the fitra is the root what you were saying referring to what was the where the to me and I will
Fitra is your nature. You know, Allah has
what
given
it
you
is,
nature.
where it is. So what it is, I mean, but what it is, I mean, nature is where it stands in your nafs, in your ruh, and in your qalb, what it is.
Well, well, it's given to you. I cannot identify where it is exactly located. It's in there with you. Allah has given it to you. Correct?
And the
Psychiatry does not
psychiatry,
goes into detail where
you said
your
the id
fitra
is
is.
the fitra. I mean, it is you born with, and then the
Yeah,
other
you're
thing
born
which
with it.
you,
Everybody is born with it.
yeah.
Right?
I mean, according to psychiatry of the Freud psychiatry, that
Pride
I
does not goes in religion.
yeah,
Just
yeah,
take it out religion.
I know, but when you were you were trying to make it like make sense
Yeah,
to
so it
the
has this
yeah.
shortcoming, means Freud is not the
No,
perfect,
no, no, no.
means it has a
Where
lot of
you
shortcoming,
by the
correct?
understanding of Islam and the traditional psychiatry basics or whatever. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but do you understand the qalb is not the structural heart? I don't know whether you believe in that.
I do actually, but I mean, I with that it has more function that which we have so far identified.
Okay, so let me ask you a question, okay?
Sure, sure.
So if you say qalb is structural heart, it has a memory system, correct?
I don't know about the memory, but we make
Why
decision. Of course,
not? Because
there must
the
be some like of course there must be some system to correlate things like synapse. Oh yeah, that's be.
yeah, memory system. You know, we have done studies after studies, correct? Looking into the memory system of the brain, correct? We have identified where the memory lies at. And you can look up, it means you can ask the cardiologist how much memory system they found in the heart, correct? As compared to the brain. I can refer it to you the clinical diagnosis of Alzheimer disease if it's up to date. You know, this is the article I published. it has 313 autopsy done, correct?
Right.
These people were, diagnosed with some memory issue.
Mm-hmm.
We were thought they may have Alzheimer. After they passed away, after 10 years, autopsies were done. We got the results of everything. Then we identified, did the diagnosis of Alzheimer disease hold values or not, correct? We got
Okay.
the whole results yet.
Okay.
Now, somebody can tell me from the heart, has somebody has done that. I have never seen it.
But they have done not about the memory, but why the heart need the
You need
memory?
memory
If
to
they have
do all
connection
those
with the
things.
like if have it has like vagus and everything, other nerves, some sympathetic,
Where the
parasympathetic,
Vegas start from?
they can just convey the messages just to connection with the maybe the memory is still. I mean, I haven't read any articles on that much detail, but maybe the
Please
memory
read it. Please
is
read
still.
it. Okay,
Yeah.
let me ask you a question. Where the Vegas
So
starts?
so Vegas is all over from up to the down, the all to the system, all
Where it starts? Where it starts?
in the
It has
brain, on the
start from
brain.
the heart.
No,
So where it
when it
starts
connect
from?
to the heart, yeah. Through
Yes. So
part of our science, yeah.
So Vegas also start from the nervous system, not from your heart, correct? And if you think a heart, and this is where the lot of question comes. So if heart is the center of the body, you put a pacemaker, and that person will stay alive for 10 years, correct? Because
Well,
that's how the pacemaker works. For it lasts, the battery lasts for 10 years, correct?
okay, so
So then they will never die because the heart is alive, so the person is not dead, correct?
yeah.
That's incorrect. We call brain dead when the
Brain as a
brain
brain is
dies.
not the brain is part is not working. The cerebral or cerebral cortex is not working. Cerebral cortex specifically. Brainstem is still alive. That's why the people can then move their limbs too sometimes.
So the
But
brain stem
yeah.
is a part of the brain, correct?
Yeah, but cerebral cortex is dead. That's the problem.
Okay, so when cerebral
Yeah.
cortex die and the brain die and the heart is beating, you cannot say a
Yes.
person is alive, correct?
Yeah, person is alive. Yes. Yeah.
No. Travis Shriver, she was kept 10 years. Her
Yeah.
heart was kept alive.
Okay.
Other politicians, they were kept for 8, 10 years. They look
Mhm.
at the brain and they were dead long time ago. It was
Yeah.
officially diagnosed in 1981 that when a brain dies, you should be pronounced dead. This is a legal term. That's why we call brain dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
So your heart can be, and even if you have a pacemaker, we disconnect the pacemaker because we
Yeah.
pronounce them dead. So heart is not the center; it's your brain is the center, and that is
No,
what
even
Qalb
when
is.
if you when even if you disconnect the pacemaker and you said that the brain has died long time ago, but the body is still there with our machines. But when we turn it off and when it takes time, and then when it is all the heart is stopped, according to our the machines, then we declare that even the doctor that now this person is dead. Okay, that we were,
No,
or maybe it was machine or what, but the last thing which we see to go away is the heart pumping. Maybe it is machine or the person, and brain with a brain death before maybe 10 years ago or 20 years ago, yes, of course, but
okay,
sometimes
let me
heart keeps
correct
on
you on
going by
that.
itself too, even without that
Okay, there are 5
pacemaker,
symptoms we look for a person to be pronounced dead. Heart is
because
not one
it's
of them. You look at the
according to
pupil,
according to our science, yes, we, because that person is not functional.
it's
Rational, he cannot do rational thinking, he cannot move about, or that, yeah.
so
Yeah.
if a
It's
brain dead, then he's dead. We call him dead. And
yes,
we
yeah.
disc
But
so
yeah, if we
it's
will
not
do
the
not
heart.
support it
Heart
from
is
the
beating,
outside, then
correct?
he will die gradually by himself.
So
If
it's
we
the
will do
brain
not
dead, no?
support with the other machines or the, yeah, we know that we are in the hope that maybe the intention, the conscious brain will maybe some regained by somehow, if it will, with that we're trying to
Yeah,
give that
but
time,
if you lose
recover.
everything in the brain, the body is dead. You're just keeping the heart alive by pacemaker or other system. You can keep it for 10 years. Terry Shriver was done for 8, 10 years, correct? And they were hoping things will get better. There are politicians who were kept for alive for 8 years. We got all the data of that. You're just keeping alive and making miserable. The person is already dead because he's brain dead. You can keep alive as long as you want, but it's not alive.
Jazakallah khair. Yep, thank you so much, Dr. Najeeb. Dr. Najeeb had 80 minutes for this session,
Sure.
and those 80 minutes are over now. Dr. Najeeb, if you want to announce about the reflective log that you have created for the audience, so that
If they
you
want
are
to
able
go
to.
through it, and I can answer if they have time to go through it.
No, so the thing is, Hamza is about to share a feedback form. We call it reflective log. If all of the audience can fill up that reflective log, the answers will be shared with Dr. Najeeb so that he knows how much the audience has understood these concepts, so he can build and tailor the next sessions according to our responses. So kindly fill up that form, and inshallah, we will take it from there in the next session, inshallah. Thank you so much, Dr. Najeeb. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, and thank you everyone for joining the session.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I really appreciate, and I ask for forgiveness if I have said something wrong, but my intention is to teach you what I know, but Allah knows the best. Okay, thank you very much, and we will talk next time. Okay, Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.